I'm a business coach, and I work with people all over the globe who are successful and stuck and get them unstuck. And so I thought, I always like to talk to people about kind of where's your stuck. And my question to you is, as a business owner, in today's world, where do you get stuck, and how do you get unstuck?
Well, it's interesting. There's probably four different dimensions of stuck for us. So there's the market side, there's internal to the company side, and there's our supply chain side, and then I think there's just kind of a overall stuckness that every startup goes through. So I'll take those in turn if that's okay. So on the market
Yeah.
side, um, the biggest challenge we have is, so people are familiar with, big tobacco, big oil, right? All the big bads. What they don't realize is another one out there that I like to call big garden. And I'm sure your dad and I would have spent hours talking about this as well, which is if you go to your average garden center at a big box store, you see all those beautiful, it's right now it's spring. So you see this all the time, the crowds of people buying pretty flowers and the rest. Turns out those are all invasive species. And they're actually part of what's been damaging our environment and making the pollinators disappear. And what I mean by that is, if you remember as a kid driving around like I did in Southern California, my parents' station wagon, whenever we go on a trip anywhere, the windshield would be covered in bugs. And at the gas station, you'd always have to clean off the window. And now you don't see that anymore. And that should really scare the heck out of people. So the first problem that we're stuck is getting people to be aware of the massiveness of this problem. People know about carbon, they know about plastic in the ocean, but they don't understand why the birds and the bugs have been disappearing. And it's actually because of the plants they're putting in their yards is a big part of it, right? We've spent 200 years putting in lawns and changing our landscape. So stuck area for one is number one for us is getting people educated. Because if you get them educated, there's a ready-made market. People spend $50 billion a year on gardening. We did this research when I was at Accenture before I came over to help National Wildlife Federation launch this business. The second area is on the talent side, right? There's always a war for talent. I don't need to go into detail there, but always finding the right people who, in our case, it can't just be technical skills. They also have to have the mission alignment, which is that they care about what we care about, right? We're trying to fix the planet 1 yard at a time. So you have to get people who actually care about that, because startups are hard, right? And it takes a lot of work. And so that means that when you're burning that 110, 120th percent, you do it because you care. And that actually matters. So when I recruit people, which makes recruiting a little bit harder, I make them read the book first that started this company, which was written by a professor, Doug Tallamy at the University of Delaware. And based on their reaction, I know whether or not they're like, I get it, it's interesting, or I need to help solve this problem, right? And it's that ladder that you have to find, which makes, of course, the window a little bit tighter. And then the third one is on our supply side, because we're trying to disrupt an industry that has been built up over decades, growing plants for the big box stores and places like that. And so they're used to growing these annual plants that are invasive species. They're pretty, they're showy, and they just churn them out like crazy. And we're trying to grow native plants, which are a little bit harder to start just by the nature. And then the native plant industry, which is made up of lots of small growers all over the country primarily, doesn't want to do part of the puzzle, which is fulfillment. They don't want to have to put things in boxes and ship them to customers. And so for us, it's a challenge, because then we have to find those and nurture them and teach them how to do it, which just creates a lot of operational chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I know a little bit about the world of gardening because my dad was such a master gardener, but I've never really thought about it to the level that you're talking about, and how big and how important it really is. Just the garden itself. You know what I mean? I mean, I know the environment and the trees and insects and et cetera, et cetera. But when I just think about a garden, I think of it just kind of like my backyard, garden type thing. But it's so much bigger than that. I have a question for you. So I appreciate you kind of sharing that insight. I think that's really, really important. And I think, that's another thing people get stuck on, is thinking of it as however they think about it in their story, right? And so you kind of, open up eyes to look at it from a more multidimensional perspective.